Hello everybody, welcome to the Student Perspective podcast where we interview your recommended lecturers about their career paths to find out what options you have after you get your degree.
Today we are joined by a seasoned leader with 22 years in the Defence Forces, a successful business owner and now full-time lecturer at Dublin Business School. From peacekeeping missions to driving change in business, he's seen it all. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ray Whelan.
Good morning, guys.
How are you,
Audience
Ray?
clap.
Thank you. I hear the clapping in the background.
Live audience.
Yeah.
Just for a bit of background, will you tell everybody kind of what you do here at DBS?
Okay, so my name is Ray Whelan. I am full-time lecturer in DBS. I'm also the program level manager for the MBA program and MSc in management practice. So I'm responsible for delivery and content of thing, and also looking at the MBA Society as well. I head up the MBA Society, so that's what basically I do.
Yep.
Cool. And so can you give us a quick overview of your career so far? Just a quick one.
Okay, so it's funny enough, actually, when I thought about doing this thing with you, actually, it's I suppose people have a perception of people they don't know, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a good thing to ruin that perception or not sometimes, yeah. So I'm not really one for talking about myself. I don't really do that kind of stuff, and it's I don't know how you two persuaded me to be here today, but anyway, it is what it is. I think that I kind of drip feed people information about my life because people can be curious about other people, I think. So,
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is going to be a good positive thing or a negative thing, but anyway, I'm also a firm believer that contempt, the more you know about someone, the more contempt you can have for them sometimes as well. So, however, I left school when I was 16.
Okay.
I hated school. And my friends would say that school hated me as well, so it was an equal decision there from my view. It wasn't because I wasn't particularly good at school, I just didn't see any point in it when I say so. I always wanted to be something, either my mother would say that I would be a fireman, or I wanted to be a pilot, I wanted to be an astronaut, so I was a typical stereotype boy in that point of view. I was probably very shy actually when I was in fact I was very, very shy, actually very reserved teenager. I grew up in an amazing family. I had two brothers and 5 sisters. One died recently, not too long ago, and I had an idyllic childhood, but hadn't got much though. I didn't grow up in a very wealthy or affluent family. Lived in a corporation house with 3 bedrooms with 8 of us there, and it was magic, but it was tough. So I left school when I was 16, about 16 and a half, and on my 17th birthday in June, I enlisted in the Defence Forces, and then in September I went to Monaghan, which is on the border between Northern Ireland and Ireland. I went up there to my, what you call basic training, what we call recruit training. So we spent 5 years up there along the border, some of the worst troubles up there along the border. It was very, very operationally based. It was great, really good introduction to soldiering. And then I went overseas in my first overseas trip when I was 18 years of age in Lebanon. Saw my first child being born, not my child obviously. I saw a child being born in the back of a car. Yeah,
Jesus.
that was an experience. It was at 18 years of age. I don't know. I don't want to go through the whole military thing, which is look, that's quite long.
We'll get into it, but what did you do after the military?
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. I left the military and I worked in a security company, top security, which guard the place down here as well. It was a complete disaster. So I think I lasted about 12 months there before I got bored, and then I went to work in Sodexo as the learning development manager, and then I was actually the learning development manager for all of Ireland, whole island of Ireland. And then I was headhunted to go and work as another security company called Federal Security, which is a massive security company then, and I became a director of that company, a director of operations. Then I worked in a parking company where I was a HR and operations director in that company for about 4 years, and then I opened my own training company, and DBS was a client back then. So for 9 years I had IBEC, DBS, Dublin Zoo, and many more clients. I had a load of different clients there, so I'd go and do the professional management training for them. So I did that for 9 years, travelling all over the country. I actually went to Malta. I actually trained the Maltese Defence Forces in some of the stuff there. And then last year, after 9 years, there's a couple of people here in DBS that were always asked me to go full time. I kept going, no, I'm not interested. So I had a long think about it. So since September 23, I think it was, no, 24, 23. Yeah, some year, just a year and a half, more or less, year and a bit, full time now in DBS. So that's kind of like very condensed.
Yeah,
but
it's really interesting, but it's interesting you speak about education, not being a fan of it. I think something we've learned from speaking to a lot of lecturers is that there's many forms of learning and educating, and college doesn't necessarily, or secondary doesn't necessarily have to be the way that you learn, but that's how we're all marked. So the system's a little bit flawed in that sense, where it only kind of encourages and praises one form of learning.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I agree it's flawed. I back then it was different though. Nathan, it was different than it is now. I mean, my youngest daughter's a teacher now, and I mean, the techniques she uses now are more aligned to what I think people should be taught. I mean, back it's an alien concept for you. Back then we weren't taught. We were bullied and we were beasted and we were beaten.
My dad was left-handed, so they used to slap him with a ruler.
Yeah. When I broke that knuckle, and like my brothers would come home missing teeth and like to have bruised. I mean, we were just brutalised, and that's back then the culture. I mean, look. Did it do me any harm? Probably not, yeah. Do I think education is important? Yeah, I do. I think education is extremely important. I mean, I had to, like, in between, leaving Defence Force, before I left Defence Force, I started doing my undergrad at night time. I did all my degrees at night time. I did two undergrad degrees and a master's degree all at night time. And like that was like holding a full-time job, moving careers and doing that kind of stuff as well, So do I think education is important? Yeah, I absolutely do think it's important. But it doesn't necessarily, and I think the point is that you don't necessarily have to do it though in a time frame that everybody else has to do it either. I mean, you can you don't have to, you don't have to go to school and do your undergrad straight after school. You don't have to go off and do your master's degree straight after your undergrad. And I think that's where the mystery gets me. I just think people need to develop. People say like about maturity, whatever kind. I think everybody needs to find their own niche in life. The problem I think in your generation is you're always in such a hurry to get to where the top is, but I'm a bit alluded to what you even know that top is. I'm not talking about YouTube, but I'm just basically, I think people. My experience in TBS that everybody's rushing to get somewhere, and you ask them where you're going, they go like, I don't know, but I need to get there.
I think that's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
I think that's a big reason for why we make this, is because a lot of students, they don't really know what to do. Like, they've come out of secondary school and they've been asked to make a decision about what they want to study, and they've made one based off maybe what their best subject was, or what they half enjoyed, or they just took a guess or whatever would let them into a course. And now they're finishing undergrad going, what do I do now? Or I don't really like business, I don't really like psychology, I don't really like this or that. Like, where do I go?
Yeah, I think I know you're coming with this, and I suppose you can't roll back society. That's what society expects of from that point of view. Like, I mean, there was 8 in our family, and only one of us went to college. That was my younger sister. It just wasn't done thing back then, I mean, now everybody goes to college now because everybody's got money and do whatever kind of be. Like, I'm not necessarily that's a good idea. I mean, you look at the statistics of, the first year come to college, whatever. I mean, a lot of them don't succeed in their trade. They find it really difficult for whatever reason, point of view. But I think for me, when you look back, I mean, see, it's great looking back. When you're 21, 25 here, it's great looking back. I mean, when I was your age, I was invincible your age, I mean, I'll come back to that maybe later on, but I think that, looking back now, I think, and from a very early age, I had philosophy, and not that I come up with this philosophy of my own. In the military, it's all about, you have to have a very clear vision of what you want to do in your head, and there's no room. You can't be flip-flopping around. If they ask you a question, you have to know exactly what you're doing. So if you're going from here to there on the map, you have to tell them where you're going, what are you going to see, what can you expect in 100 meters, 200 meters. So you get conditioned to thinking about, not about where you're going, but like, what is it you need to get there with, So So now I'm a big fan of philosophy. Like, I mean, like I would have I'd have a communication philosophy. I'd have things around my communication there. Like, for example, I'd never ask a question I don't know the answer to. Even though I don't always achieve this, I try to say something. I don't say something in 20 words I can say in 10. I believe in brevity. I don't use big flowery language when talking to people because I think that's unfair, because I'm older than them, got more experience, and it's not about me impressing them how good I am at doing that. It's about me communicating with them. So there's a philosophy in that communication. There's also a lot of philosophy around my emotional intelligence and my leadership style as well. And I try to live that philosophy out through things as well. And I find that's really good. I find that a lot of students don't get that. I think they kind of go through this kind of fog sometimes, and they think like, oh, I get this piece of paper saying I'm intelligent, everybody love me. And I'd even think that point of view, but then their interviewers say, like, so what's your leadership? So I don't understand that leadership is a philosophy, communication is philosophy, and any other thing is a philosophy from that point of view.
Yeah.
So everything I do in my life is all about based on that, on those, and you might call that strict rules. They are strict rules. But at the end of the day, I need that structure. Without that structure, I couldn't function.
Yeah.
And what would you say then initially motivated you to leave education and to join the army?
Oh, just listen, Paddy. It just just wasn't for me, mate. I mean, like, I hated it, you know.
Was it the only two options possible? Is either stay in school or
no. They're my options. I could have stayed in school. I mean, I was a bright enough kid. I mean, I loved history and geography. I hated maths, and I hated Irish. Was just, oh my God, it's like, you know, I've had some beatings in my time from that Irish teacher. Like, I mean, I think I went to the army, and I psychologically I was prepared for the beasting, because she just beasted us all together. Like, she was like, so I loved history and geography. I still love history and I still love geography, and so no, I just wanted it. There was something that it's hard to explain to you. Yeah. There was just, I mean, my mother, when she was alive, she'd tell you, like, from the time you were 9, it was all something to do with action. It was all kind of, and I'm not an adrenaline junkie, by the way. Don't get me wrong, I'm not an adrenaline junkie, but like, I just think there's more to life than just, like, I want to do something that no one else was going to do. And my uncles had been in the military, and there's a long history. My granddad fought in the First World War. There's a long military history in my family from that point of view. So I was fascinated with all those stories. And my uncle was in the RAF, and he used to come home, he used to tell us stories, and you know, and he was fascinated with all this thing. So I suppose it was that idea of, I don't know. Yeah. I can't really tell you, because I think this was a calling. I mean, soldiering is a calling. It's not a job. It's a call. You have to be totally. I mean, it's not for everybody, and it's a really tough job.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard for me to understand why someone would, or to me, pardon my ignorance, but it seems like you're signing up to get bullied. Like, that's what it seems like. You're signing.
I wasn't bullied, Paddy. I was conditioned.
Okay. And was that some of the reason? Did you feel like you were missing some discipline or some order?
No. I mean, there was order in our house. Like, with 8 kids, there was order in our house, believe me, you know. And like, my parents were very passive, though. Like, my mother would. I was always terrified of my mother for obvious reasons. So no, I mean, was I bullied? In your terms, probably. I mean, if you saw it, you'd go like, oh my, but no, I wasn't. I was. Look, I think the conception or the misconception about soldiering is that, like, soldiers trained to kill other people, and to do that, you need to be in a certain frame of mind. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you're going to ask me a question every kid, and no, I didn't. Now, nor do I want to. That's not the point. The point is, though, was I prepared to do it? Yes, I was, to protect the people that were in my unit. That's my job, you know. So it's a hard concept to get your head around when you don't understand how military people work, you know. Like, it is very difficult, or, you know, military people are not normal people. If there is such thing as a normal person, they're way beyond that any kind of normality you think of, because they think different than you do. Yeah,
I can only assume as well. For example, if I use sports as my kind of outlet, a lot of skills have transferred across, like communication, teamwork. I assume the military has brought you so many skills that have kind of transferred across into the working world as well.
Yeah, there's a numerous amount of skills, and like, I use them every day when I'm here. I use them in my training every day. I mean, like, the training thing just came natural to me, because like, that's something I did when I was in the military anyway. So it's training people to do stuff was just comes natural to people. I think that there are other skills there. I mean, like, but there's other stuff as well that's not compatible, if that makes sense. And you have to. I'm always conscious of that as well. You have to watch that from that point of view, you know. So a very strong personality, and you know, do I suffer fools easy? No, I don't. Yeah, and I have to watch it, though, because that contempt can be sometimes a little bit more. Yeah, so it's about just understanding where you're at. That emotional intelligence is really important to me now, though. Yeah, and it's really important that you just stay in that side of that what you would call normal, you know.
And you spent 22 years then in the military. Was there anything that was difficult about the transitioning from going to the military to corporate life?
Yeah, I'd imagine it must be.
Yeah. Well, initially, I didn't think it was going to be that difficult, to be honest with you. I think I had a couple of experiences. I think, I had a couple of really, really near-death experiences in the military, you know, and I don't not tell any war stories here, lads. So don't ask me. So I'm not. But I came home overseas. My last trip overseas, I came home, and my youngest was only 3, I think, anyway. And I hadn't really seen much of her, because I was away a lot when I was in the military. So I didn't see a lot of my kids actually when they were grown up anyway, which is another story. But I'd come home, and she's only about 2, and I was home alone with them, and thinking, like, well, look, you know, just come back from overseas, just managed to keep everybody in tow, 120 people in tow, and get them dressed and all that kind of stuff. This should be no problem. And she started crying, and she cried, and nothing was settled. Or even my oldest daughter couldn't settle her, so I had to ring my wife and tell her to come home. And she came home, and she said to me, I can't understand. And that was a real eye-opener for me, because, like, I realised then that I had drifted so far away from everybody other than the people in my unit. And that was a hard lesson to learn from that point of view, and that's a bit personal, but that's a very hard lesson to learn. But you learn from that, though. You learn, and I think other transition things that, no offense, but civilians don't think like soldiers. Yeah, like we're very mission focused, we're very objective focused, and we don't like people flip flopping around there. So we don't do something, and we like to get it done. So and you probably just experienced it with me. Like, if I ask you to do something, I'll probably ask you 200 times to get it done because I just want you to get it done. It's not because you're not doing it; you're just not doing it quick enough. And it's about that learning that people have, like, but to us, like, I need to get this done, I need to get done, I can't do this until I move this. So, and it is a hard transition sometimes, and civilians have a kind of a loose kind of timeline about doing, get it done, need it done now, like, and they're like, well, I'm busy at the moment. So there's a transition there from that point of view, and I'm retired now, 22 years now, and I'm finally coming out of that phase now of my life now. And I know you might think that's really strange, but it took me about 18 years to come out that whole thing. So now do I really, don't miss it anymore, not craving for it anymore. Yeah. So, but about last 5 years now, I'm probably in that frame of mind now where I'm actually just in a good space now. And it takes a long time though. You're talking about when I was 17, I was only a kid, and you're talking about that 22 years. Like that's like
your whole life.
Like when you think about it, you're 25 now. Like I only started my military. I was only starting to be really kind of proficient in my job at 25 as a soldier. So then, and I spent my whole life every day setting the timetable, completing jobs, do tasks. People tell me what to do. Me telling other people what to do. Like doing that sort of every day for 22 years, and then you suddenly come out and you're going like, oh.
You're almost institutionalized.
Well, you are institutionalized. I mean, it has to be like that. Otherwise, you become culture dependent. You become dependent on not just the culture, but like your friends around you. I mean, they're extremely important. Your friends around you are extremely important.
Yeah.
Like what would you say then would be the biggest lesson you took away from those 22 years? If you had to pick one. I
think lessons would be lessons. I don't know lessons. I think what I took away from that, I'd be very people focused now. Like I'd be very, very, like I'd be task oriented and people focused. So I would be very much about getting people to reach their potential as much as they can and get theirs. And, I tell my students, look, the methodology is probably crude, it comes across as crude, but I mean, at the end of the day, I've always got their interests at heart, and I'm always trying to push them to be the best person they can be, because I know you only get one shot at this. Like, so when you're 50, when you're 80, what are going to be, and I say to you, like, do your best, and you say, yeah, I did my best. Well, look, that's me, that's a good result. But if you're saying, look, I could have done better, well, why didn't you? I think a lot of your generation, like, my generation too, like, I'm not just saying about you, but I think a lot of people go through their lives and they just don't reach their potential, and I think that's really sad. Yeah. So to me, I think that, like, I always want to reach my potential, I always want to be the best person I can be. Unfortunately, we don't always get judged in our best intentions sometimes. I think that's probably something that I think, but I don't expect anything off anybody anymore. I do things for people, and I don't expect, like, I've given up people trying to, like, people saying thanks to me, what they're going to be, because I just think people are just basically very selfish at times, and they don't realize the effort to put in. But look, I didn't come to DBS for the Ray, and I keep saying it's not about Ray Whelan, and it never will be. I mean, I want people to walk out of DBS.
Except today, it is.
Well, it isn't. It's not about Ray Whelan, though. And like, I mean, and I say this sincerely. I mean, anything I do in this institution here, it's never about me. I don't need it. Like, if you want to talk about accolades, you want to talk about, like, you want to talk about, like, achievements, I consider all day, lads. I've got a Nobel Peace Prize medal. If you want to talk about that, it's probably one of the biggest achievements I ever have. There's nobody in this college. Well, there's actually one person. Two actually have it. Yeah. So 3 of us here in the whole institution here. So it's never about Ray Whelan, but it's about everybody else. And that's always going to be my focus. It's about getting people to be the best person they can be.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong then, but because I feel like it would be easier to get a sense of fulfillment if you always have a mission and you always have something to do, and people are telling you what to do and you're telling people what to do. And then you come out of those 22 years of army, and then you're into the corporate world, and you kind of have to find your own missions. Is it harder to feel fulfilled in a way in that corporate world as opposed to the army? How did you find that? I think the scary
part is always making up the objectives. That's the scary part,
Yeah.
I think, when you think about that, like, yeah, I mean, I think that's even looking back is scary. But no, I think it is. I think it is harder because I don't, like, I can know what success looks like from a point of view of getting things done from that point of view, and some people don't understand what success looks like. People sometimes just don't want to. They want to come in, get paid, and go home. What it's going to be, So that is pretty hard, because the pay's pretty bad in the military. Yeah, so I didn't spend all the time in the army to get rich. I spent it because, it was a calling, I mean, and it was tough. I mean, physically tough, mentally tough. It can be very, very demanding on all fronts of your life from that point of view. So I didn't do it for the money.
When did you start to do your degrees?
I came on my last trip overseas. I think it's like everything. It's just, sometimes you realise the uniform, and it's not because I was fat now, but you realise the uniform was probably getting a little bit tight in me here, like psychologically, and you're doing it can be very repetitive. You're doing the same thing over and over again, but just with different people. You might say, well, what you're doing DBS, right? I do, but it's different though, and
it's different characters.
Well, different mindset, I think. But I think when I came back from overseas, I applied for an education grant, and they paid for the first 2 years of my undergrad, and that was a complete eye opener for me. Now, I mean, I never, and again, this is not. People think this is rugby mark. I never spent that much time with civilians ever until I did my first year in college, and it was like I think it was like a rabbit in the headlights. I was just kind of going like, what the hell?
The fact you're calling them civilians as well is
no. It was just I was like, I'm a civilian, but like back then, like, I mean, there's a very distinction between. But I remember sitting like and going like how do these people actually function? It was just, there was no rhyme to reason. Like I just couldn't get my head around that. There's no logic to it, But to them, it was normal for them. To me, it was like, what? I just couldn't get the drinking and the bluffing and the general just kind of. I went to every class. I studied a bit like you. I went to every class. I didn't miss a beat. At one stage, there was 70s in a class. I think I was the only person in class at one stage because we were all down the pub drinking. I just couldn't get my head around, it. It took me a while to get my head around, that I was the outsider here, and I was the one that was sticking out a little bit. And I think the famous story is that like in the military, you're trying to win all the time, but you're like extremely competitive, and I would be still competitive now, but not as I was when, I would have been much more competitive back then. And one of the things was that I came back from an exercise one night, and there was loads of recruits there, and it was very, very wet, and they were very hungry. And I said, we're not eating the food out on the ground. We're going to go back to the barracks and have the food in the canteen. We went back to the canteen about 8 o'clock in the evening, and there was a civilian locking up the dining room. And I marched the troops up, and they were soaking, they were wet, and like whatever. And I said to her, we're going to the room. She says, you can't go in, the dining hall's closed. And this is going to sound really, really mean now, right? And I looking back now, so I said to her, open the door, or I'll put you through the door. You have a choice, yeah? And she looked at me, and she opened the door, and I marched the troops in, and the place was spotless after. And my boss called me up the next day and he said, Ray, oh my God, he said, she put a bullying claim against you. And I said, okay. He said, what happened? I told him, this is what happened, I said, And he goes, what was in your head? I said, you wanted me to stand down to this, 22-year-old girl, and all my troops stand in front of me. So you wanted me to tell them that she could tell me what to do. And he goes, go away. And I went out, and I went to lads, said, I think I'm in trouble. And lads go, it'd be grand, don't worry. And he called me about 3 hours later, and he goes, sit down. He said, actually, this is my fault. And I went, oh, that's great.
I'm out.
I said, it's great. And he said, this is my fault, Ray. It's not my fault. It's our fault, he said, because everything you've done from the time you went to the army, we told you to win, and we were challenged. And you won. We trained you to do that. He said, but the manner you did it. And I said, I didn't think about the manner. I just thought about the optics of it, And that's real military doctrine and real military thinking, that everything you do, you have to win, and it's very competitive. Because when you're in the battlefield, there's only one winner and one loser. You can't be the loser. You have to be that dogged and have to be have that tenacity to do it, So that can be an issue, as you can see now. It can be an issue, can't it?
Yeah. Did you have to? Does that mean? Did you think you have a lesser sense of empathy, or is that something you had to work on?
No, I actually think I am quite empathetic. Actually, I think I'm as empathetic as anybody else wants to be in the circumstances. There's a limit to my empathy, though. And everybody knows this. I mean, look, if you get caught cheating an exam, you do ChatGPT or get someone to do your dissertation for you, there's absolutely zero empathy for me, yeah?
Shot and killed on site.
No, I mean, you took a chance, you got caught, it's your and don't come whinging to me after, Yeah. I mean, because my thing is then, there's other students in that class who tried really hard, and you're trying to, so don't come crying to me after you did something. So that would be zero tolerance for me, zero empathy. If you don't get caught, well, you're bluffing yourself, you're not bluffing me, but I don't. It's not a lack of empathy, Paddy. It's not a lack of empathy. people, and even now, people look up to you. You can't let people that see you as your role model buckling down every time there's a bit of pressure. Like, you've got to stand your ground some stage, you know. Like, you can't. When you're in the military, you can't let your troops see that, like, people pushing you around all the time, because they've got to see you as being the person that like, you know, if they're in trouble, or like, you know, I'm trying to avoid any war stories here now, so I don't do that kind of stuff. But I think that I was telling some of the story that, like, my middle trip, I went to overseas in 1999. Was it 1990? 1990, I think it was. I think it was 1990. Yeah, I was stationed in this remote hilltop in South Lebanon, and my job was to monitor an Israeli base. That's all my job was, 24 hours a day, for the whole time I was there. Just monitor this base, coming and going, shellings, aircraft, whatever it's going to be, is going on there. And one night we got surrounded by Hezbollah because they were doing a coordinated attack on the Israeli base. We aren't in any immediate danger, but I was sensing that there could be a danger if there was a problem. So, and we were going to the bunker, so I gathered them all together and I said, you know, listen, you need to at least get ready now. And I said, we're going to go towards the bunker. If anything comes towards you, you just need to fire, because no one else. It's only 9 of us anyway, and I counted all 9 of us. And the young private says, you want me to fire? And I was going, I'll take the lead. And I was telling my mate there, I was going along, the weather was atrocious now, it was on top of a mountain. I was approaching the bunker there, you know, I thought I saw something moving in the dark, and I thought about opening a fire, and I said to myself, I'd just wait. And there was nothing, it was just shit blowing the wind there, you know. We got the bunker, I realised then, and you know, that's where it's important. You're flip-flopping around people there, they won't trust you, they won't go with you, you know. So even now in DPS here, you know, you've got to have that kind of, they have to know that if they come to you, you'll do something to help them. But you're not going to help them if they've done something that's contrary to what DBS is about. Now, I'll be all about protecting DBS. So if you put DBS in danger there, you know, I'm going to have zero tolerance for you, because you're jeopardising me, your job, and everybody else's job here, and that's not going to work. So you can see the way that...
Yeah, where it transfers.
Excuse me, yeah. I don't know if it's making sense to you, but...
no, it makes sense, I get it.
It's complicated, you know, because you're asking me to go back 20 years now and ask me what I think 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And how we think now, but there is a correlation in that point of view. Look, I'm never going to change. I'll be a soldier. I'll be a soldier in my DNA from the time I die.
But does that confidence come from experience, or do you ever have to, like, fake it and just, like, pretend you're fully confident?
I've had to fake a few confident things.
No, I don't think. I think my mate's a fantastic swimmer, and he said, I brought him down to the pool, and he said, I'll wait down the pool for you. And I came down, and he said, you walked down the pool, he said, you had your hat on, he said, you had your shorts, he said, oh my God, you looked amazing, you know. He was slagging me, of course, you know. And I walked down like this, and he said, all the civilians, all the people there in the pool, they said, like, you know, he said, to be honest, I didn't know you. I thought, like, you'd be, like, you're some world-class swimmer or something, you know. And he was slagging me. And I get into the pool, and I was there, I could swim, but I was learning to swim properly. I think I took 2 strokes, I was coughing water up, you know. And so it's that kind of, like, you know, that I need to show you, if I can't do it, I need to give you impression, if it's going to be problems there, that at least that, you know, I'll be there for you if something happens. That makes sense.
So you'll do your best anyways.
Yeah, you should always do your best.
Yeah.
I don't even think doing your best. You should always reach your potential in everything you do from that point of view. And that, whether that's 30%, 40%, 50%, doesn't matter. You should always, every task you get, you should always, especially as people involved. I mean, I don't mind not people involved. If it's just a task, no one's going to get hurt, or no one's going to do whatever. No one's going to miss a grade or whatever. Yeah, that's okay. You can kind of. I'm not saying you should do it wrong, but there's people involved, there's people's lives involved, there's people's like whatever. You need to make sure that you fulfill that task properly, because they're going to suffer if you don't do it properly. That goes now back to DBS, like, you know, being in the lecture hall, you know, doing your job properly, following up on complaints, following up on things, especially people so far away from home, they have no friends support. It's really important that you focus on, you know, you really put yourself in their shoes, and you're like, you know, if that was my child in India, would I want someone like me to, yeah, I would, yeah. So I would take that really seriously.
Yeah.
You know, and like you could turn around and say, look, right, it's not life and death. I've been told it's not life and death. Yeah, it's not, maybe it isn't, but it's important to somebody though, you know.
Yeah, I lost you, and obviously you've gone away, obviously on tour with the army, but they'd all be people you know quite well, and you'd be quite comfortable in the group, or you know at least someone's there to have your back. A lot of students who come here have nobody, and it's quite lonely and quite hard.
I can imagine. Yeah.
I don't know if you would have any advice for somebody like that, or what you would suggest.
Well, I think, you know, I'm trying to avoid that really personal here, lads. But my mother died very suddenly, and I went to a big show in Birmingham, and I was in this big, huge arena, this show here, and we were doing whatever. And I remember standing there. It was one of probably the most profound moments of my life, actually. I remember standing there, and I must have been standing there looking up to the middle distance or whatever, and this girl came over, and she and don't laugh at this because it's not funny, right? This is not funny. It's probably going to cross funny, but it's not. And she literally had one eye, right? Don't laugh. She had one arm, and she had a guide dog, and she was like, she's obviously severely disabled, and I didn't know who she was. She said to me, "What's up with you?" She said, And I said, "Another thing." She said, "There is, come on, have a cup of tea with me." Total random her. And we sat down for ages and we were talking. She told me about her disabilities and what happened to her. I was petting her dog all the way through, and we were having a chat. And I never met a girl in my life. We had a coffee and a chat, and she said, "I have to go now." And I said, "Look, nice meeting you." She says, "Yeah." And this guy came over to pet her dog, and she absolutely went through the guy for a shortcut for petting the dog. I was petting the dog the whole way through. She says, "I don't mind you petting him, just don't want him petting him." I was kind of like, "Okay." And I said, "Can remember her name?" Said goodbye to her, and I walked up thinking, "Wow, like what? That was just like It was just one of the most incredible, one of my moments of life." But to answer your question though, I was feeling really sick, and I was really sick, not sick, but I had this terrible pain in my stomach, and it wasn't sick, and it was homesickness. And I never felt homesick before, I was never homesick. For all the times I was away, there's people that you're kind of miss and whatever kind of be that side, but I'm never homesick, And I often say to myself, with the students now, I wonder did I wake up some mornings had that really horrible pain in the stomach, and what can I do if to help them do that? And I think, Nathan, it's all about recognising that you're a long way from home, you're a long way from your family, and I say to them, to come and tell me a problem, whatever that problem is, even they text me sometimes. Someone text me, WhatsApp me, and say, "I've got a problem," or whatever, and I've no issue with that because I think I have a higher duty of care here for them because I'm the program level manager here. Now I could ignore them because the end I could, and that's that would be.
It would be acceptable.
It'd be acceptable, and no one would know any different there. But I don't think that's right, and I think that if I was a student far away from home, the best advice I give is and again, I know this sounds like crazy, but go and join the MBA society. Go up to the 4th floor and join the society. Go and do whatever. Make friends, but try do something that you have a piece of home where you have someone that's home that's do something like that you can forget about all that you lost you have and probably gain something that point of view. It's hard though.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point. I think it's quite hard to be anywhere by yourself, and especially with college. The one thing about college is there's so many things going on, there's so many places to be, that if you just throw yourself into something, you'll find a piece of home where you'll find some comfort in some people. And it can make it a little bit easier. I
suppose you're younger though, it's much more difficult from that point of view. And I think culture wise, a lot of you come here and their culture doesn't allow them to it's okay if you lads you're outgoing, you're flamboyant, you'll talk to anybody, you'll get involved, enjoy the party, and you'll mix around whatever. But it's mixing for them is I don't know, some of the cultures can't mix with men, some of it's it's just difficult.
Yeah.
And then they've other issues going on as well. I mean, you can imagine all the other issues that they have, that everybody else has from that point of view.
Yeah.
It must be really difficult for them to so I try to go in and tell them as much as I can, and when they're that's why we run the events for the NBA, so it's so important. It's you get to know them, get to chat to them, they get to and I think again, it's not about Ray Whelan, right? But I think that we've been hugely successful in that regard in the last 13 months or whatever in the NBA. So I think we've a lot more work to do, I think, but we're really getting there, the engagement, and we're trying to get people to just go along and just have a pizza and have a beer and have a chat with us, whatever it's going to be. It's nothing else, just passing the evening for you,
And you obviously you run the NBA society, I kind of run the football team, and I think we may have a common thing in the sense where I can see a lot of the football players who maybe come here from abroad, from France or Spain or from whatever, it really becomes their whole experience here. They really connect with it, and it's a massive thing for them.
Yeah, I think any commonality. I think any the football thing's a great analogy because they come here, they're playing football, and football is football no matter what you're playing in the world. And I know I don't know much about football, so don't come back to me. But
even when they come to DBS, it's a friendly face in the hallway, it's a friendly face in the common room. That maybe you're in class with someone they feel they can talk to now, and it makes things a little easier.
No, I think anything that makes it a common ground. I mean, we've never been to India or I've never been to those far out countries there, but I imagine coming here it must be like going to the moon, for example. It's food, the weather, the culture. Everything must be just kind of alien to them, you know. I mean, so yeah, I think my advice, people coming here, is that, you know, get involved as many. I mean, like, to be fair, DBS is a great community, and like, we do run a lot of events, and I think just get involved and do it. And like, it's really going to help you, you know. Well, the days you wake up some mornings go like, oh God, I really miss home. Yeah, sure. Look, you know what, that happened to us all, but at least you can say, yeah, but I'm going to see Paddy or Nathan today, and like, you know, but look at Nathan. I'm a big believer in that, you know. Like, I would watch some of my students sometimes, and I'd feel that they're not kind of performing in class. Or I would say, is everything okay with you? Not going to be. And someone would say, yeah, everything's grand. Are you sure? They get 3 chances. You sure? If you see them again, I go like, you don't see yourself at the moment. And someone would say, look, I really miss him. I go, look, that's okay. Because once you admit something wrong with you now, we can like, I can't do anything for you. But I say, did you ring your mother today, or did you talk to your family today? Some of these people, the MBA students, have kids at home. They left their kids at home. I mean, you know. I mean, imagine you going to India and doing your education through whatever language they speak. It must be absolutely frightening for them, you know. But it's not insurmountable, though. That's the whole thing. Like, you know, fear is one of the things that, you know, fear is not insurmountable. You just need to know how to what you're up against from that point of view. Once you know what you're up against, you can deal with it.
Yeah. I think as well, I spent some time abroad, Paddy spent some time abroad, you spent some time abroad. Whenever you go anywhere, the people there kind of make it easy for you. Like, if you go to a different country, those people there will try hard to speak your language, or they'll try to bring you into things, or they'll try to adapt you to culture, words and stuff like that. I think we almost have a care for those students who come here, the international students, to make it a little bit easier for them. And I think a lot of the domestic students, they all get caught up in their degrees and their thing, but it is a community and there's people around you, and you should be
I think so. I think
a little bit more aware of that.
No, I think also the domestic students need to be more aware as well of what's going on. But they're obviously, look, it's very hard for them.
They're so young as well.
Yeah, it's so hard for them to realise that other people might be suffering that point of view. But I mean, you see great community spirits in some of the classes there. I mean, I have a class there, and one of the students had a bereavement in his family, and the whole class went down to his apartment that night and had dinner with him, you know. I mean, that's like, don't see much of that anymore, you know. I think that's great, you know, and that's something I think is brilliant. I mean, we've forgotten how to care for each other, Paddy and lads. I think we've forgotten that, and I think we need to remember. It's like, you know, I was on the 4th floor. They're only watching this now. They'll be sick and tennis. They're on the 4th floor there recently, and this chap pushed me out of the way, you know, and I don't like being pushed. No one does. And he's got his ping pong ball, and I stopped him. I said, okay. Like, you obviously say excuse me, and I'll step out of the way, and then you say thank you. And he looked at me and said, no, we're going to try that now, right? So you're going to say to me, and I made him go through the whole thing. But my point to him was, I said, you occupy this is not just your space, mate. Like, the whole world, we all occupy the same space here. And we're going to go around being ignorant and rude to each other. Like, I mean, we can't do that. I mean, I think you have to always, like, good manners doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
Now, that's very subjective, because some people say that, oh, you're not good mannered. That's grand. That's a matter of opinion, that point of view, yeah. I think it's a matter of opinion, but I think being polite, no matter what happens, is always a good thing, you know.
I think as well, once I was coming up in the lift, and I got in and I squeezed in next to like these like smaller young ladies and whatever, and we got out of the lift, and as the lift opens, it's a packed lift. Like, these students are trying to walk into the lift that is full before letting people out. And my temper naturally is to say something, but someone grabbed me. It's a cultural thing. Like, they're not trying to be rude or disrespectful, or it's just that's kind of how it works, like, back home for them.
Yeah, but
I think sometimes you just have to be aware of that as well and not get too angry.
No, but I think that awareness though can lead to more bad behaviour as well, though. I mean, like, I was going to the 4th floor recently. This guy gets in the 3rd floor and it's supplement, and the lift us. I said, "Where are you going?" He's going to the 4th floor. Take the stairs. And I went up, and he met me in the stairs. And I know he's one. I said to me, I said, look, it was quicker for you to go up the stairs and get in the lift anyway. Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand that mentality. So, but he probably does that every day.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, unlike you now, I sometimes just can't mind my own business. I have to intervene, and people go like, "Oh, like, shock and horror." You know, it's like you just sometimes people have to learn, like, you know, take the stairs. It's only one stair. Like, I take the stairs regularly, you know, and like, most of you are half my age.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I suppose it's just, yeah. But sometimes you do have to take a deep breath sometimes, because I mean, at the end of the day, as my mother used to say, I like to think you can change the world, but you can't. So I think you can't change everything at all time, you know.
And a lot of young students who come here, a lot of them stay actually, and they find a good job here. Ireland's quite a hub for a thing, but when they go into the working world, they've done 1 year as an MBA or whatever it may be, and it's a culture shock. And I'm sure you also had the experience going to the corporate world and it being a culture shock. But obviously it's a little bit easier for you because you're home. But some of these students have to learn that type. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think Nathan, and you know, my thing now to everybody at the moment is that when they come here, is that you've got 9 months here. in a very controlled environment. Make all the mistakes you want. Ask all the questions you want. Be as curious as you can be. Because whatever skills you learn here now, it won't be enough for you to be successful. Now, I don't know. You could have 120 of whatever in my class from that point of view. If you look at odd one and you have 120, you might get 70% of them that will go, oh my God. You might get, yeah, he's right. You might get 20% go like, yeah, I have to do that. You might get 10% to actually do it. So if 10% of those people walk out of that classroom and you impacted on their lives, yeah, job done, mate.
And you've done then all these projects and you've had this wonderful career with all these achievements. Is there anything that you think you did that has been underappreciated or that deserves more recognition?
Or even if it doesn't deserve more recognition, but like maybe it doesn't look as big as it feels?
When I left the military, I had no CV. And I was messing around with, I was going to say something else, I was messing around with my CV there for a while and I applied for a few jobs, people going like, no. So someone said to me, go and get your CV done professionally, So I went down to this girl anyway. I went down to this woman. She was, I don't know, she was probably in her late 70s maybe. She lived in a big house in Dalkey, but was real dowdy looking, but I'd say it was fabulous in the day, but she, like I'd say she was very successful. You just know by the way, I mean, the house in Dalkey was worth a fortune, And I remember going into this musty room, and it was probably the lighting wouldn't be as good as this, and the big thick curtains were just kind of half open, and it was like dust everywhere. And kind of, it was like, Jesus, what's going on here, And she like you, she was interviewing me, and she said, leave it with me. She said, come back to me, Well, I left it with her. I came back to her anyway, and she put in the narrative, recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize, And I said, okay, just hang on a second now, And she goes, what? And I said, okay, like there's other 10,000 people got this as well, And she goes, yeah. Shit. But the people you're talking to don't understand that. So do we think that's something? I think when you're talking to army people, we don't realise how big of a deal it is when you're talking to people outside. Like it's a big deal. It is a big deal. It's a massive achievement, you know what I mean, from that point of view. So do I think we're undervalued? Well, that's a question. I think definitely being in the military was Irish people don't appreciate the amount of sacrifice we give. I
think there's probably a bit of a stigma that they roam the streets, there's no fights in Ireland really to take on, so like why are they, do you know what I'm saying? But there is people who travel abroad and there's people who really
look, like when you think about it, I was up on the border patrolling the border along sort of worst trouble along that border, I was like 17 and 18 years of age, I went to Lebanon at 18 years of age, I was shot at, I was starving, we ran out of food. And my middle trip, we had no water for 3 weeks. A bit like you going around at one stage, and we were like, so, did we make sacrifice? We did, yeah. But the question is, for who? And did anybody care? But the Lebanese people cared. That's the most important thing. So I think that's been undervalued there. Do I think I'm undervalued in DBS? I think this is probably I've been working DBS since 2014 now, don't forget, yeah?
Yeah.
As a contractor at one stage anyway. And so you can't really count those kind of years because I really no investment in the whole thing from that point of view, yeah. But I think but it's changed considerably since I came in 2014. It's a lot better now, a lot more structure. There's a lot of really good people in DBS, a lot of really talented people in DBS, a lot of really talented people, a lot of really talented managers in DBS, Do I feel valued? Monetarily? No, I don't. Yeah, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't, yeah. Do I feel valued as a person? Yeah. But here's the thing about me. I don't put value on money anyway. I'm not motivated by money. Do I have to pay my bills? Absolutely. If I had major bills, would I be doing this thing? No, I'd be working somewhere else because from a monetary point of view, I'm undervalued. I think I am. Yeah. But, other people say, we all are. That's okay, But if you want to measure life on money, I'm not motivated by money. Money does nothing for me. It's absolutely, it's a means to an end for me. I pay me mortgage, pay me bills like you do. It's not because I got loads of money. I don't, lads. People think I do. I don't. I worked hard for the last 9 years. I did a lot of stuff in the last 9 years and, and I've paved the way to be here. I wouldn't be here if I still had the bills I had 9 years ago. I wouldn't work in DBS because I couldn't afford to.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's helped answering your question.
No, yeah, it does.
Yeah, no, it does.
Do I feel valued? Yeah, I do. I think personally, this is probably from a point of view, and this is really strange now, and I don't want to sound really kind of like idealistic here, but I think this is probably the best environment I've worked in since I left the military.
Okay.
like I feel really connected to people in DBS, you know.
I also feel that way as a student. I feel like the community kind of reaches all the way up and all the way down.
No, it does, and I feel connected. I've got some really good friends here, and I feel that like but I mean, look, you know, I try really hard making connection with people, and I try to build that community myself. I try to be a positive part of that community myself from that point of view, you know. And when I have problems or the students' problems there, like I know who to go to, and 90% of the time that a student has problems there, like I'm able to sort them out really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And look, a lot of goodwill gone on people as well. But then, you know, I'll reciprocate that and I'll ask them how they are. But I mean, I try really hard at people in DBS, especially staff. I'll go and ask them if I know something going on. I'll ask them how are you getting on, how's your kids getting on. I'll do all that, and I'll work really hard to build that relationship up. You know?
Yeah. And as we get more towards the end of the podcast, then before we leave, is there anything you'd like to promote or say to the people watching?
No, I think go back to Paddy. I mean, you know, if I was your age again now, I think you just need to find your own uniqueness there, and like that's what you need to find. And like, you know, as you get older, this gets easier. I mean, I care little for what people think about me. I would hope they'd be positive about me, but if they're not, that's up to you. You know, Ray Whelan is happy with Ray Whelan's thing there, and I know what I'm capable of doing, and I'm not capable of doing. And, you know, do I want people to give me feedback? Yeah, but it depends who gives it to me, to be honest with you, yeah. So I would say that, you know, you've got to find that unique and what makes you separate from everybody else. And when you find that unique, and try have your own kind of philosophy around things as well, and try, you know, and I'd say to everybody, just be kinder to each other and stop being so nasty to each other, and stop like biting people in the back and push people around. Like, just be nice. I mean, be nice people, in my view, always win the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
People who are mean, and that sounds like a 13-year-old. People who are mean to each other and nasty to each other, they generally are not very happy anyway, and they don't generally be successful because people see through them anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as well, it's important that, just to build on kind of what you said earlier, that, you know, where people in college are in a rush to get somewhere, but they don't actually have a finish line. They're just running. But I think when you are in that kind of stage, which I think we all go through probably in our 20s, that's important to try things and fail and see what you like and don't like, and that will help you find kind of a finish line. Listen,
I've had plenty of disasters since I left the military. I mean, I worked for companies there. I mean, like, they were just disasters. Did I enjoy it? No, I didn't. I mean, you know, at one stage I think I was earning about 160,000 euros a year, yeah? But I was working 15, 16 hours a day. You know, I mean, sooner or later you're going to have to say to yourself, like, what is it that I want to do? But I think that whole thing about like where am I going? I mean, you know, one of the questions I always ask my students is, if I could tell you two now, you can have anything in life, don't ask me for money, right? But I stand in that door there, and whatever you want, you can't fail in it, yes?
Yeah.
Now, I can see your brains going, ticking around and go, I know what I want to do, yeah? Very few people be able to do that because they don't know what they want. They want this magic stuff there. They want to have this good job. And I say to them, work at McDonald's. McDonald's is one of the best companies in Ireland, yeah? So the best, wins prizes every year for their employee engagement. They pay really well. They pay more than anybody else well. And their leadership training wins prizes every year for their leadership training. So really good job, McDonald's. Oh, I don't want to flip burgers. So they don't even know what good job is. And I can't really tell this whole story now, but I've done some work over the last 2 years, and I had one case there. I was consulting with someone there who, that person, I'll say because of my connection here, took on a very big institution, one of the biggest institutions in the world here. She took them on because she was wronged, and she won. And that institution is an absolute disaster. If you said to me, I'm going to work there, I'd say to you, like, okay, just, yeah. So we have this notion about, like, this really big thing there, but I mean, what do you really want? And I know that's a lot, and you're right, when you come out of school as well, you go like, I don't know what I really want to do. Well, I get that, you're not going to know what you really want, but I think you need to know what type of person you want to be.
Yeah.
And then you have to say to yourself, like, I mean, I couldn't work in Facebook or any place that I just couldn't do it. They're just too faceless for me, and there's no, to me, they're just shallow. There's no depth to them. For me. That's only Ray Whelan though.
Yeah.
That wouldn't suit me. That corporation work would not suit me. I'm not that type of person anyway. And you might say, well, you worked in the biggest institution in Ireland. I did, but that's like it's not corporate though. I couldn't work in those big corporations there. They're too. I don't know. They're lifeless to me.
I mean, I almost see it with colleges as well. Like the massive, like for example, UCD. You kind of blend in too easily.
You know, I worked in UCD, and I worked in UCD, and I worked in the IPA. I lectured there, and I lectured in TU Dublin. Yeah, you know, and UCD wasn't the worst experience I had, but TU Dublin was like I actually don't know how anybody actually goes to work there every day. Like, it's so negative. And it's like and like I've got some really good friends up there now. It's nothing to do with the lecturers personally, but the way they're treated, and there's no sense of purpose there. I mean, they can't be sacked, they can't be fired. It doesn't matter what they do. You know, and I did my masters up there, and like, you know, I think out of the 9 lectures I had, there was probably 2 of them there was any worth their weight in salt. I mean, I was self-learned from that point of view. Which, you know, I think that's sad for people to go through their whole education and not really get inspired by their lecturers, you know?
Yeah.
Before we leave then, we have this tradition of asking the question that was left by the other lecturer, and you also have to find out from the next lecturer. So the question that was left by Alexander Victor was, what has been your favorite part of your career?
I think that's, oh my God.
Must be quite hard to pick.
Yeah. It is hard. I think,
or one of the first ones that popped into your head.
Yeah, there's too many pops there to maybe. I think that, I don't know. I think my, you know, I think right now, I think I'm achieving more personally now than I think I have since I left the military, to be honest with you. I think I'm making this. I see this. I don't want anybody to tell me this because I don't like. I have to believe this myself.
Yeah, it has to be.
It has to be a self-belief here. Like, and you know, I think that I made a huge impact on this MBA society. I think I made a huge impact on my students there, and I'll continue to do that as long as I can. And I think that when I go to bed at night time, when I go home, I'm actually quite happy with myself and what I do. Do I get it right all the time? No. Do I make mistakes? Yeah. Do people think different things? Yeah, they do. But everybody has an opinion. But collectively, you know, I brought something that was nothing. I think that is something now that wasn't for, you know, and I've got some good comments from that point of view, and I think I'm making a difference to people's lives. And that to me is really, really important. Yeah. That makes me feel good about myself, but hopefully that makes them feel good as well about themselves as well. And my question is for the next lecture is, you know, what impact are you making in the world right now?